Welcome to the February 2022 edition of the Tidbits and Time Almanac.
February 1st, 1864. Peter Paul Halagian was born in Armenia. He immigrated to the United States in 1890 and opened a candy store in 1895 in Naugatuck, Connecticut. With a lucrative contract to supply chocolate bars to World War I soldiers, he founded the Peter Paul Manufacturing Company in New Haven, Connecticut, in 1916 with $6,000 in capital. During World War II, he packed 5 million Mounds candy bars into combat rations. The Almond Joy Bar was introduced in 1946. Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't.
Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't.
February 2nd, 1892. William Painter, a mechanical engineer, patented a bottle sealing device which became known as the bottle cap. It was invented by Charles Spencer, an employee of Painter's. It had 24 teeth and a cork seal with a paper backing to prevent contact between the contents and the metal cap. Several variations of bottle sealing devices have been invented since then. Born in Ireland, Painter moved to the United States at the age of 20, looking for opportunities. He founded the Crown Cork and Seal Company, since renamed as Crown Holdings, which is still in existence today. He held 85 patents, including, among many others, the bottle opener. February 3rd, 1690. The American colony of Massachusetts began to print the first paper money in the New World. The other colonies quickly saw how easy it was, which led inevitably to mass inflation, eventually yielding a 40-to-1 ratio as compared to gold and silver. By 1790, a pair of shoes cost about $5,000, as denominated in fiat money. There's an old saying, rags make paper, paper makes money, money makes banks, banks make loans, loans make poverty, poverty makes rags, rags make paper. February 4th, 1941. Teflon was patented. Chemist Roy Plunkett accidentally discovered it in 1938 while he was working for the DuPont Company. It is the only known compound that a gecko lizard cannot stick to. In fact, it has the third lowest coefficient of friction of any known solid material. If it's so slippery, how do they get it to stick to a frying pan? February 5th, 2022. Celebrate Ice Cream for Breakfast Day, inaugurated by Florence Rappaport in Rochester, New York, first celebrated in February 1965. She wanted a diversion for her children that would cheer them up during the dreary days of winter. For an early morning treat, you probably want to eat it from a bowl. You can pretend it's like cereal. What flavor and toppings do you like best? Interestingly, many politicians regularly have themselves photographed, frequently stopping at ice cream parlors in various cities they visit while campaigning, usually in casual clothes or sleeves rolled up. Political consultants advise candidates in this, suggesting the activity as a fitting symbol of Americana, a treat with which people of all classes can identify. Political men seem to prefer photographs with ice cream cones, while the ladies are usually pictured eating, more neatly, from a bowl. February 6th, 1965. The song You've Lost That Loving Feeling charted at number 1 in the United States, recorded by the Righteous Brothers and written by Phil Spector, Barry Mann, and Cynthia Weil. It had more than 8 million airplays by 1999 and nearly 15 million by 2011. The song was featured in the 1986 Top Gun movie, sung by Tom Cruise, not a good singer and off-key, and it was in a great scene where he's trying to woo Kelly McGillis. Top Gun is one of my favorite movies, and despite its delays, I can hardly wait for the sequel to be released on May 27, 2022. February 7th, 1795. The 11th Amendment was ratified. Despite the opening words of the U.S. Constitution, the document is essentially a contract between the federal and state governments, and this amendment curbs the power of federal judges, including the Supreme Court, to interfere with the sovereign immunity of the states. The courts have made decisions that have watered down this amendment so much that it hardly applies at all these days. February 8, 1955. John Ray Grisham, Jr. was born in Jonesboro, Arkansas. I attended a speech he gave a few years ago in San Antonio, and he told of failing with his first book, then deciding to give it one more try by getting up and writing from 5 to 7 each morning before going to work. That book, The Firm, was a huge bestseller and was particularly interesting to me when it first came out because the protagonist was a tax lawyer. February 9th, 1895. William G. Morgan created a new game first played in Holyoke, Massachusetts, called Mintonette. After various rules changes over the years, it came to be called Volleyball. The game has expanded to encompass more than 800 million people worldwide, making it one of the most popular sports ever. It's played by both men and women teams. In casual backyard play, the risk of injury is low because it's not a contact sport. At the college and international intensity of play, injuries are not infrequent because of the level of play. Indoor volleyball is played with 6 contestants per team. A variation called beach volleyball is played out of doors on sand courts with only 2 people per team. February 10th, 1775. Charles Lamb was born in Edmonton, London, England. He was a poet and essayist, famously using the pen name Elia, which is used generically now by many authors who want to remain anonymous. I only heard of this in recent years from my friend I.J. Ahrens. Having never known this before, I saw it start showing up frequently after I.J. told me about it. Apparently, Elia is commonly used in crossword puzzles. February 11th, 1915. The Texas state legislature passed an appropriations bill to pay for expenses incurred by former Governor Oscar Branch Colquitt for chicken salad and punch, among other items, during his term in office. An ensuing legal battle, known as the chicken salad case, lasted until June 1916, when Justice William Seat Fly ruled that the legislature could appropriate for fuel, water, lights, and ice necessary for the governor's mansion, but not for groceries and other personal needs of the governor. Colquitt's successor as governor, Jim Ferguson, had continued to purchase groceries with state money under this appropriation. Ferguson testified under oath that he would repay the state if the Supreme Court decided against him, but he failed to do so. In September 1917, the High Court of Impeachment held that Ferguson was guilty of a misapplication of public funds. The Court of Impeachment, by a vote of 25-3, removed Ferguson from office and made him ineligible to hold any office of honor, trust, or profit within the state of Texas. Ferguson continued to exert considerable political influence, however, through the political career of his wife, Miriam "Ma" Ferguson. After the impeachment of her husband, Ma Ferguson ran for the governorship and won, becoming the first woman to become governor by winning a general election in the U.S. She lost her next election in 1924, but ran again in 1932 and won a second term. February 12, 1893. Omar Nelson Bradley was born in Clark, Missouri. While a cadet at West Point, he was a baseball star, playing on professional teams part-time without pay so that he didn't lose his amateur status. He graduated in 1915 as part of the class the stars fell on. He and 58 of his classmates became general officers, 36% of a total of 164 graduates. One of the distinguished graduates in that class was Lieutenant General Hubert R. Harmon, who was the first superintendent at the U.S. Air Force Academy and instrumental in its establishment. February 13, 1866. Jesse Woodson James and his gang held up their first bank, stealing $15,000 from the Clay County Savings Association in Liberty, Missouri. Along with his brother, Frank James, for about 15 years they robbed banks, trains, and stagecoaches across the Midwest. They were never caught. Jesse James was shot and killed by Robert Ford, a new recruit to the gang who hoped to collect a reward and be granted amnesty. February 14, 2022. Today is Valentine's Day, the day on which we celebrate romantic love. Every February, florists in the United States import several million pounds of roses from South America. About 36 million boxes of chocolates will be given as gifts today. I especially like Valentine's Day because February is the month during which my wife and I were married. Here's a love story. Robert Louis Stevenson was passing by the window of a house one night in France when he looked inside and fell instantly in love with a woman he saw eating dinner with a group of her friends. Stevenson stared at her for what seemed like hours, and then opened the window and leapt inside. The guests were shocked, but Stevenson just bowed and introduced himself. The woman was an American named Fanny Osborne. They fell in love and got married a few years later. Marriage seemed to make Stevenson more industrious. Even though he was often bedridden with his respiratory illness, he published on average 400 pages of writing a year for the rest of his life. February 15, 1564. Galileo Galilei was born in Pisa, Florence, Italy. He was a polymath, an autodidact, self-learner throughout adulthood, musician, astronomer, physicist, engineer, and mathematician. He agreed with the theories of Nicholas Copernicus about the Earth revolving around the Sun. He disagreed with the theories of Johannes Kepler, who had correctly determined that the Moon caused the tides and the orbits of planets were elliptical instead of circular. February 16, 1959. Fidel Alejandro Castro was elected Prime Minister of Cuba. He deceived his followers and many world leaders during the revolution and thereafter by repeated claims that he was not a communist, nor even a socialist. But he eventually showed his true nature by destroying every vestige of free enterprise and replacing every aspect of Cuban social economics with Marxism. At the impressive height of 6'4", he was a thug dictator of the tiny, impoverished island nation from 1959 until his death in 2016 at age 90. He lived a long life despite a lot of womanizing and smoking so many cigars. February 17, 1996. Grandmaster Garry Kasparov beat the Deep Blue IBM supercomputer in a chess match. 1 year later, an updated version of Deep Blue beat him. Now there are no grandmasters who can beat computers. However, no computer can beat a grandmaster who is aided by a computer. Are we headed toward singularity? February 18, 1929. The first ever Academy Awards. The political comments of winners and presenters have become tedious and unpleasant. This time will probably be even worse than usual because Hollywood has become increasingly out of touch with the general public. Who cares what an actor, director, or filmmaker thinks about politics or anything else? And the show is always so boring that a drinking game might be appropriate. I prefer to find out the next day about who won or lost, but admittedly, when I read the news later, I recognize very few of the names of the celebrities, and I realize that I've seen even fewer of the movies. February 19, 1473. Nicholas Copernicus was born in Thorn, Royal Prussia, Poland. A polyglot, polymath, and autodidact, self-learner through adulthood, he was a mathematician, astronomer, physician, and economist. He is best known for his book On the Revolutions of the Celestial Spheres, wherein he fused astronomy with math to reprise an ancient theory by Aristarchus of Samos from 18 centuries earlier. Some century and a half later, it was still such a controversial theory that it caused considerable trouble for Galileo Galilei. February 20th, 1929. Beverly Louise Nell, stage name Amanda Blake, was born in Buffalo, New York. She was in 22 movies, but she's best known for her role in the 19 years running television series as Miss Kitty, the saloon keeper on Gunsmoke. An animal lover, she and her third husband, Frank Gilbert, bred 7 generations of cheetahs, the first successful breedings in captivity. She was the first major star to die of AIDS, possibly contracted from her 5th husband, Austinite Mark Spaeth. February 21st, 1613. Mikhail Fyodorovich Romanov, the first of the Romanov dynasty, was chosen Tsar of Russia. Unlike many of his descendants, his rule was under free market principles, very low taxes, and it made Russia considerably better than when he was first inaugurated. The whole country rose from the ashes and moved forward. However, successive Romanov czars were much more ineffective, mostly frittering away the gains of the first Romanov Tsar, and they set the stage of the Communists who took over in 1917. If you follow the below link in the show notes, you'll find it fascinating, but the voiceover is in Russian, so turn on English closed captioning. February 22nd, 1907. Sheldon Leonard, actual name Leonard Sheldon Burchard, was born in New York City. He was an Eagle Scout as a boy and grew up to produce The Danny Thomas Show, The Andy Griffith Show, The Dick Van Dyke Show, and I Spy. He frequently appeared in movies, most notably as the bartender in It's a Wonderful Life. The television series Big Bang Theory had one character named Sheldon and another character named Leonard. February 23, 1945. Joe Rosenthal photographed 5 U.S. Marines raising the U.S. flag atop Mount Suribachi on the island of Iwo Jima. I know you've seen this photo because it is possibly the most reproduced photograph of all time. It won the Pulitzer Prize for photography and was later used for the construction of the Marine Corps War Memorial. The island was heavily fortified by the Japanese, and the invading Marines suffered high casualties, but they finally captured the 546-foot mountain. Rosenthal was later interviewed, and that old, scratchy reel-to-reel tape has been digitally remastered, and the whole amazing story is available from Wizard Academy Press. February 24th, 2013. National Tortilla Chip Day. Only within the last few decades have Americans been eating corn chips. In 1932, Charles Elmer Doolin brought home a corn chip recipe from Old Mexico and began making things he called Fritos in his mother's kitchen in San Antonio, Texas. The popularity of tortilla chips has grown a lot since then. February 25th, 1919. Oregon became the first state to put a 1 cent per gallon tax on gasoline. Now the average state charge is 38.69 cents per gallon. California is the highest at 68.15 cents per gallon, and Alaska is the lowest with 15.13 cents per gallon. What about your state? The federal government has also gotten into the act with an extra 18.4 cents per gallon U.S. tax. Combining state and federal, the national average is 57.09 cents per gallon. February 26, 1946. People in Sweden, Finland, and Greece began reporting what came to be called ghost rockets. There were about 2,000 such sightings in 1946, some 10% verified by radar soundings. Many may have been meteors or other natural phenomena. Some people speculated that they were tests of German rockets by post-war scientists who were studying the V-2. Others thought they were Russian tests. Some reports included mid-air maneuvering. Naturally, all this was investigated and kept secret by the various governments, but the Swedish documents have now been declassified, and researchers are studying them. February 27, 1933. The first call came into a Berlin fire station that the Reichstag building, which housed the German parliament, was on fire. The Nazi Party used the fire to accuse communists of starting it. Adolf Hitler urged German President Paul von Hindenburg to issue an emergency decree and suspend civil liberties of members of the Communist Party of Germany. That decree was issued, and there were mass arrests, including all of the Communist Party parliamentary delegates. That gave the Nazi Party a majority in the parliament, going from a 44% plurality to a 52% majority. Marinus van der Lubbe, known to be a communist, was arrested, tried, and executed for the arson. However, his guilt was suspect and contested. February 28, 1944. Cornelia Arnolda Johanna Corrie ten Boom was arrested, along with her family, by the German Gestapo in Haarlem, the Netherlands, for hiding Jews in their home. The Nazis were offering rewards, and a neighbor betrayed the family. Her father was a watchmaker, and he died 10 days later. Corrie and her sister Betsy were taken to the Ravensbrück concentration camp, where Betsy died. Corrie was later released due to a clerical error. Corrie wrote a book about her war experiences, The Hiding Place, which was published in 1971, and a movie of it was made in 1977, with a sequel, Return to the Hiding Place, War of Resistance, in 2011. Her story is one of love, compassion, warmth, brutality, and forgiveness, and it has touched many hearts.
This has been the Tidbits in Time Almanac for February 2022. I look forward to hanging out with you next month.